Morning. Time being nearly 9 o'clock, we will open up our work session for the capital budget, HB 25. And I would like to invite Commissioner Quinn and your assistant to the table. Good morning.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the committee. For the record, my name is Bob Quinn, Commissioner of the Department of Safety. With me today is Amy Newbury, our Director of Administration, and behind me is Major Brendan Davey of the Operations Bureau of the New Hampshire State Police. We appreciate your support of the department's capital request. These projects are critical to achieving our mission to continually enhance the safety, security, and quality of life in New Hampshire through professional, collaborative, and innovative service to all. This morning, we would like to walk you through three key projects included in the current capital budget. One, the replacement of the automated fuel tax system. Two, the construction of a new state police gun range and training facility. And lastly, the modernization of the license plate production equipment. Two of these projects, the automated fuel tax system and the gun range, were included in the governor's proposed budget and were subsequently approved by the House. The third project, the modernization of the license plate production equipment, was added during the House phase and is also supported by the governor. At this time, I'll turn it over to Director Newbury, who will provide a brief overview of each project. Following the presentation, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Let's begin on page 4. This is the automated fuel tax system. And this is a crucial tool used by the Department of Safety Division of Administration, Road Toll Bureau, to collect road toll on the motor fuel and alternative fuels. This system represents the single largest source of revenue for the Highway Fund. In addition to fuel taxes, AFTS collects various fees on behalf of the Department of Environmental Services, including oil discharge and disposal fees, oil pollution control fees, fuel oil disposal fees, and motor oil discharge fees. Once collected, the fees and taxes gathered through AFTS interface with New Hampshire First, ensuring seamless integration, with state financial processes. The current system is at life end and must be replaced to continue to collect for the Highway Fund. On page 5, is the gun range.
Could we just stop right there if you wouldn't mind?
Of course.
Are there questions on their first program, automated fuel tax system? Pretty straightforward. Okay, let's continue.
Of course. Now on page 5 is the gun range. The Division of State Police operates the gun range in New Hampton that is in need of significant upgrades. Currently, the existing training building is undersized and reliant on generator power, which limits its functionality. The facility lacks restrooms and running water, making it difficult to utilize the range year-round. These limitations hinder the effectiveness of the training programs and restricts the overall utility for law enforcement and other agencies. So the goals of this project are building a properly sized training facility that meets...
Madam, could I ask you just to slow down a little? You're in rapid fire.
Of course.
Thank you.
So again, the goals are building a properly sized training facility that meets the needs of New Hampshire State Police and other agencies, connecting the facility to electric utilities, eliminating the need for generator power, installing running water and restroom facilities, providing basic amenities essential for operating efficiency, and expanding the range area to accommodate a broader range of training scenarios and provide greater opportunity for skill development. These improvements could benefit other state agencies as well, including Fish and Game and municipal police departments, such as those in New Hampton. Questions about the gun range?
Please. So is the range itself, is it an open air with a roof over, or is it an enclosed structure? Do you have anything that talks to me about it?
Yes, I'm going to let Major Davey come in because
Thank
he
you.
was quite helpful in the House phase.
Thanks, sir.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Commissioner, we could have you sit up here at the microphone over here. That way we've got all three of you. That's acceptable.
Thanks, Senator.
If I understand the question correctly, sir, it was whether or not it was an open air or covered facility. It is open air. There is what one would refer to as an outdoor kind of portico that you see in some people's driveways, aluminum, that we use for a loading area. So a couple of benches there that people can top off magazines underneath. Otherwise, it is an entirely open facility.
And inside that building, you're going to have classrooms, or you're working in the open underneath the cover also?
Yes, sir. If it's helpful to develop your understanding of what the facility actually is now, it's a sand pit. It is an open, sandy ground area. We have what you would think of as a shed. It's made of plywood. It's approximately 20 by 20. It's run on what used to be a portable generator. Now we have a standby generator that's permanently assigned there. We use that as our classroom. We've had moisture and mildew issues because it has no continuous means of environmental control. So we've had moisture issues and therefore mildew. We had to take it offline for a period of time. It has heat and electricity only when that generator is running, so only when we're occupying and using it. We do utilize that range for approximately 185 of the 260 or so business days that we have every year for our own purposes, along with bringing our own people back from administrative leave, requalifying them before they deploy to the road, along with allowing our federal, local, county partners to utilize the range. So it's used nearly on a full-time basis, day and night. It has slopes to it. We have a line of targets. We have a very narrow lane out to 150 yards, but we're open approximately 20 lanes wide to 75 yards worth of distance. And it has a porta potty. So it's a very Spartan facility. Is almost a euphemism for the place that we utilize. That said, given that it is built the way it is, or not built as it were, it actually allows us to utilize the wood line elevation to build our own items to utilize as environmental pieces of concealment and cover. It allows us to drive cruisers to a spot, get out of our cruisers, make ready, and then engage with what we're given to believe are threats. And so, as Spartan as it is, it allows us to train at an extremely high level and prepare our troopers for real-world scenarios.
So there's a picture here on the handout that we were given, and am I looking across to those sheds that are there, or is that?
What we have are, along with the porta potty, along with the building that is permanent, we have a number of Connex boxes, shipping containers, effectively, and in those we keep ammunition, we keep various weapons parts, targets.
So you're completely in the open when you're using the range presently?
Yes, sir. And I can to orient you as to the photograph, if it is this one here.
Yes, it is.
Very good. Then what you're looking at, you would be standing to the back left corner of the open area of the range. The classroom is just out of view to the right.
Okay.
The left-hand side of the picture are the target backers, and the center of the picture are those Connex boxes with our supplies.
Thank you for
Yes,
that.
sir.
And the power lines are off to the side?
Power lines go effectively left to right in comparison to our shooting lines, left to right overhead.
Okay. And before I go, we made improvements to the indoor range, I believe we did, police standards.
Yes, sir.
Are your folks using that facility in the wintertime? Is that cohabitated and that's not big enough for your needs? I understand the need for cruisers and everything else for further training, but
Yes, sir.
that facility is not sufficient for the both of you?
It is neither sufficient nor is it sufficiently available. It can't handle rifle ammunition, for example.
Okay.
It is entirely unilinear in its build for reasons obvious. And the air exchange system, for example, is extremely expensive to operate.
Yeah.
And so
It's
PSTC.
more of a pistol range, that one?
It's pistols only or pistol,
Correct.
pistol caliber only. Yes, sir.
You've answered my question. Senator Gregg.
I was wondering about the water, whether we're digging a well or drilling a well or city water is somewhere near.
I'm not sure exactly how it is that we'll be getting water, madam.
I'm looking at the plans from Public Works, and it does have a well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? No, you've answered. Thank you. Thank you for that, Major. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, just so the committees knows, I sent out an email on Friday that attached the Public Works plans for the gun range.
Oh,
So you
thank
should
you.
have that in your inboxes.
Okay, thank you.
Among probably all the thousands of other emails, but.
Fair enough. Modernization of plate production equipment.
That is on pages 6 through 8.
Yes.
So for over 60 years, the process of manufacturing New Hampshire's license plates have remained virtually unchanged. Today, with over 1.6 million registered vehicles in the state, the need for modernization is more pressing than ever. Currently, New Hampshire's plates are made from aluminum with graphics applied using heat transfer process. The numbers and letters are raised through a cast iron stamping equipment that has been used since the 1960s. Maintaining this aging machinery presents significant challenges today. Replacement parts are no longer readily available, and often custom fabrication is required. The specialized skills needed to repair and service the equipment are becoming harder to find, leading to increased downtime and inefficiencies in production. Upgrading license plate manufacturing equipment would provide several benefits. The modern technology would increase production capacity and reduce downtime. The enhanced security features such as digital watermarks, improved reflectivity, and tamper-resistant elements would make it more difficult for plates to be counterfeited or altered. Lastly, the adoption of more sustainable manufacturing processes would reduce waste, lower energy consumption, and align with environmentally responsible practices. We had brought this to the House because our concerns that the equipment wouldn't make it through to the next biennium. And it was actually down at the time that we brought this proposal to the House, and some of the equipment is down today.
We had questions or thoughts that we wanted answered, and I appreciate you being here for it. So the production of plates presently is housed in corrections. And we're assuming that there's oversight, needless to say, but the production is being done by our guests at the.
Yes.
So now, tell me now that this is moving from corrections, which is, we've always been the understanding we need activities there. Where's this being moved to? And what's it costing us in personnel? Is it coming through your department
Sure.
to process plates?
Sure, I think, so there's a lot of unknowns here, but the first piece of this is to secure this funding. So there really would be no plan to move the existing equipment for the plate production, which is, I want to say, 90 years old, maybe more.
Yeah.
So the plan is to go out to get the new equipment, the new modern equipment, and place it at our location at headquarters in our warehouse. We're working on that now. We've scoped it out. We've got the ability to put it there. And so that would be the new production, the new equipment would go there. What would stay at the Department of Corrections is the equipment that produces the paper plates and the stickers. And Amy can speak to a little more detail with that. And I've spoken at length to Commissioner Hanks on what the inmates would do that are involved right now in the plate production, and she assures me that she'll find other skills for them, for those folks. And we still haven't, I still can't speak exactly, but I would anticipate it's going to be far less employees to run this new and modern equipment than what they have now in this 10 to 12 step process at corrections. So we've thought this out. We have a location where the new equipment would go. And as Amy said, it's, a lot would still stay at corrections with production of the stickers and the paper plates. But again, this is the first step in modernizing the whole plate production.
Senator Waters.
Yeah, thank you. And we're going to have more discussion with the commissioner. But I have talked with some of the chiefs and others at the prison just to learn about, the two shifts of inmates. It's among prison jobs, it's a relatively high-paying job, which makes a lot of difference. I mean, high-paying in the prison context is not much, but the inmates, really do favor these. And so I guess my question then became, could we retain production at the prison with the new equipment?
I don't think that's the best option. I think getting it to our headquarters, where we also have our plate room, and we're looking to deal with the municipalities on ordering and tying the productions of plates into our computer system so we can anticipate ahead how many license plates they're going to need at the local level. So production, delivery can be more efficient, more effective. So I would recommend that, that the new equipment be placed in our headquarters.
If I may.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm just speaking for myself, and we'll see, what the chair prefers. But I think that it at least would be helpful perhaps to have some kind of conversation between you and the commissioner of corrections about whether there could be a plan that could coordinate the activities that you described with your orders and so on and so forth, with the production being over there. I say that because I just think it's awfully important that we have sustained the inmate work possibilities. And yes, I mean, they may be able to find other ways to keep folks busy, but this, as I said, there are various programs where it really improves the functioning and the morale and the outcomes for the inmates if they have productive work. So if it's just impossible, we'll think about it, but I just think it might be, I just would like to know that it's simply, I agree the equipment's finished over there, but I'm just really kind of anxious about whether the movement of those jobs and how they might be replaced, whether, if it is possible without creating enormous problems, at least I think it should be talked about. So, but as I said, I'm just speaking for myself.
No, I respect that, Senator. I knew that question would come up. For those limited positions that are utilized today in the manufacturing of the plates, I spoke to Commissioner Hanks on Friday evening in anticipation of today, and she assures me that she will have a plan for other skills for those limited positions if this equipment moves from the prison.
Well, we'll talk with her, but thank you.
Senator Gray.
I too think that, productive work over in the prison helps recidivism and a lot of things. And the more technical things, helps them build skills that they can use on the outside. But for this meeting, the question would be, is there any financial difference between ordering the equipment and having it put to your location? Whether we put it in your location or the prison, is there any financial implications to that?
I would say yes, there is. So what we're doing currently, and I guess it's twofold. So the question, they're kind of tied. So the question about what would the inmates do and the financial implications are really joined. So inherently, whether the equipment stays at the prison or comes to the Department of Safety, inherently, what are the inmates going to do is the same. So the equipment, because of the technology, you're talking about 90 to 100 years in technology change. So what today, and if you look at just the bottom of page 9, like these ovens that right now you put all of the license plates on. One inmate stacks the license plate. It goes through these ovens. Another inmate takes them off, sets them on a shelf. And then another inmate then stacks them, wraps them, and then one of my staff comes to pick them up. So this takes like 4 individuals.
Well, right now you're talking about the inmates and that kind of, what I'm saying is that the equipment isn't going to even be officially ordered until after July the 1st. It's going to be, take a time for that equipment to come in, and strictly on a capital budget kind of thing, not what's going on with the inmates. But if I make the decision later to have that equipment installed at the prison so that the inmates can use it, or I have the equipment installed in your location so that other than inmates are doing it, is there any financial implications of buying it and making that decision later?
I promise I'll get there. So right now, so there's like multiple people involved in this process, right? So so that process with the upgraded technology will go from what looks like probably 4 people in just this drying stacking process to almost no one, right? Because the machine does all of this today. So if we move that process to the Department of Safety, along with right now a current process that we launch on Thursday, which is automating inventory to all of our municipalities. Now we've got equipment right on site, which will also produce license plates. We're going to take an automated inventory at the municipality. We're going to be able to produce license plates right on site with a machine that doubles our capacity that we need. We're not even going to have to run it full time because it doubles what we need for the state. So we're going to embed that into our processes. We're going to take staff off the road. It's going to be much more efficient and less costly because we're going to use current staff who are not going to be driving back and forth to the prison or be driving out into our communities as much. It will be less expensive to have it at the Department of Safety versus corrections because we're not going to be driving back and forth.
We're not asking for new positions, I believe is what you might be looking at.
Not exactly.
Please.
Again, what I've heard from you is the cost afterward. And, what I'm saying right now is that the decision of where to put it doesn't seem to be tied to whether to buy the equipment or not. Okay? The installation is going to be the installation, the equipment is going to be the equipment. And I don't see right now
So-
that if I make a decision in July to move, to have it at the prison or have it at your facility, I don't see that, just that part of it having a financial implication.
And I think, Senator, if you're looking at that decision, whether to leave it at the Department of Corrections, like we have no plan on moving the equipment that's there. At some point, if the decision is to put the new equipment at the Department of Safety, which I believe is the wisest decision, that equipment would have to be surplus, scrapped, removed. Again, it's very old, it's very heavy. But if you look at stability, if you're looking to get modern equipment, I believe that you want to put it in a location where the workforce isn't impacted if there's an issue at the prison or if certain inmates go into lockdown. There are many unknowns as to what might impede that equipment running. As Director Newbury said, the equipment can double our production, and I think that placing it in at the Department of Safety with our employees can ensure that some of these unknowns that are beyond your control don't impact production with the new equipment.
Thank you.
So my question would be, how many people does it take to run this new machinery?
So in the research I found, it looks like we would, because the machine can produce double what we need, it looks like one person generally, and 2 if you wanted an additional person for quality control. And that was with 1 to 2 operators are needed per shift to run a fully automated machine, and the second person was for quality assurance.
Right, so we're down to 2 people. where are you getting these people to run this machine? What are these people doing right now?
They're working in the warehouse right now in the plate room.
In the plate room.
Okay,
And just so you know, sir, right at our headquarters where we have our warehouse, there's room there in the plate room. Assistant Commissioner Lavoy, our facilities folks have already looked at that. They understand, I believe it's a 40-foot stretch that you need. Some of it needs to be temperature controlled. So in anticipation that these questions might come up, we do have the room, we do have the space. We have been thinking of whether or not it can work, and we believe it can.
so, and if you don't have the information, you can get it for me. So this is about a 40-foot span inside your building, your warehouse, if that's what I'm hearing. Is it 20 feet wide by 40 feet? How big a space?
I'd have to get that for
Yeah,
you.
that would be appreciated. Then at what capacity are you at in your warehouse? I haven't seen your warehouse. Was that sent along? Is this going to tighten up that
No, we're-
building to a point that then we're going to have to build you another brand-new building?
No, I think what it comes down to is how we just, we're going to repurpose it. Where we're storing things can be repurposed and used for the equipment. So when we modernize the equipment, we will improve the efficiency of that room where we're currently storing plates.
Could you someone forward us the dimensions of that building? And if it's, at what capacity are you storing inside it? And what capacity you need open space to, I imagine, to get vehicles in to load and unload and all that? Just so I have an assurance that we're not coming down to another capital
We won't be.
we have space already sitting somewhere.
We won't be looking for capital to expand that location. We've already looked at that, sir.
Okay. All right, any other questions? I think that's all we have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, Senator West. Yes, please.
So in the original budget, you had the Troop E and you had the grants management software. Could you just speak to the things that didn't make it in? Could you speak briefly to both those items?
Which one was it, Senator?
I thought that, well, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing, but I thought that you also, that in the earlier budget from the governor, there was Troop E renovation and grants management software, or maybe that's for another department.
So Troop E did not make it, but we have a plan right now. We're working with our facilities team to kind of address some of the issues and hopefully scaling that back and looking into the future if there are.
The next budget.
Yeah. in the
Okay,
next-
and you can manage in the meantime.
we're managing.
Right, and how about the grants management software?
I'll let Amy speak to that one.
So grants management software, we were looking for a pre-award and post-award software. And currently we are working with the Department of Administrative Services to look at a module with New Hampshire First for post-award compliance. So that looks like it's moving slowly, but it's moving. And for pre-award, there is no conversation right now moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I thank you for bringing that up, Senator. So on the Troop E, which we apparently will be looking at, next capital budget, you have your building and then you have DMV to the right of it.
Yes, sir.
So your proposal is to rehab and septic system and every water softeners, everything else. I understand all that. That's the left side of the building. Do you also control the right side, the DMV side? Or is it-
Yes.
So and you've made some changes to that, but I see nothing in here. And that's a terribly crowded space in there. If this is coming as a future project, could you give me some assurance that the whole building's being looked at, or do you feel
No,
that the building to the right is more than sufficient?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I appreciate the question. We've really put a lot of thought into our buildings, whether to invest in what we have or to go out on a lease. I think if you look at what we've done, like up in Troop F, we've moved out. We're in Gorham. which at a very, very low square foot price. We've looked at some of these other troop stations, Troop A, for example. Troop A was in the same position that Troop B is in. Very small, we couldn't get enough counter space in there. It was very hard pulling out of there. So we looked in where we found a location that meets the needs, and we can repurpose that space for the state police. So what we've done is really looked at it. We're looking at, so take the Lakes region. So in Troop E, I think we need to put more thought into that. Are we going to stay here? And if we are, can we get the counter space in there? Because without building out. So that's what we're really done to think this out. We've got some great leased locations in Keene and across the state in Newport. So, but we won't bring a capital through. The state police will be staying there, but to your point, if we are going to do a capital and the DMV is going to stay there, we'll make sure that it addresses the needs.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time. Chris, do we have anyone else to speak to us today? So.
Do you need a motion to go into exec?
I don't know that we're executing at this point. For discussion, do you see a need?
If you're going to discuss, you should go into exec.
Okay, all right, then, thank
I'll
you.
move to go into executive session.
Motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are now in executive session. Mr. Shea has prepared a list for us that shows the House proposal and then for us, maybe use as a work session. If we've got some common areas, let's go there. I have some amendments that I would like to discuss. Maybe we'll do that afterwards, and along with Senator Carson has some water amendments also. So unless you have a different feeling, why don't we start with administrative services and see what we can agree on? First being the statewide emergency fund. Does anyone have issue with that?
I don't have,
And anything in that whole list? Let's start.
I don't have anything in the whole list,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
thank you. Senator Waters, items 2 through 7.
Just trying to, since I wasn't here for some of these, trying
Okay.
to look at the, was there anything that came up in the presentation from all, I mean, they had a lot of stuff in the.
They were happy with what is in here. I don't believe
think
they,
they've got here
that's
the
correct,
most
Mr. Shea.
important,
They were happy with what was passed to them from the House, but they would be open to any addition as it related to the New Hampshire First scalable project. And then there was court facilities and, sorry. They talked about the main building annex, brick repointing, Spalding window replacement, and the Brown building elevator upgrades. So the commissioner indicated he was okay with the houses, what they gave them, but if the committee found within its work that they had additional funds they wanted to spend, these were some places he would like to see them. His priority was the ERP computer system, which he said was it's a $5 million ask, but it's a scalable ask. And then if you couldn't do that, then it was the other items I just mentioned.
So, Mr. Chairman, would it be fair enough to say that given the numbers that the House sent us, so it's like 132,
Yes.
so that and I was very concerned about the career and technical ed, but I think we are where we are. But, you know, that's something we can talk about later. But I guess I'm mentioning it because it seemed that, you know, a lot of times the House has come in with a lower number and we bumped it up some. And the governor had 145, but it's hard for me to see how we can go much above the 132. I mean, we might, but I think we're looking at more, if we're going to have amendments that add say anything substantial, we're gonna have to cut something. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so in that case, I think that on these items, that what we go with is what we got. I don't see, I mean, there's a lot of other needs that I could have mentioned that might come ahead of some of the ones that
Certainly.
they're wished for.
Okay. Community college system. Chris, did we have, they were also,
They responded back in the letter that they were happy with what the House had provided them and would like to maintain that through the Senate. They had no additional asks.
Yeah, I'm glad to see the welding in here. That's gonna mean a lot for the shipyard for sure. But, so I didn't,
we're not in a final draft. Let's,
yeah, but
But
I mean, again, it's
I'm of the
same
same
thing. If
opinion
we
you
were
were
to add
in the
something
first
here that they really brought forward and said, this is a crisis need, we'd have to cut something else. But I
Right.
think as far as this list here, that the House did a pretty good job on it.
I have no changes.
line 15, Department of Corrections. There's always more need. It was always my favorite place, talking about buckets for roofs and things, but this is what the agency brought forward. And I believe they are fine with what was brought forward. It was just a question of what's happening with that plate press. And if after your discussions.
Did they talk at all about the correctional grade security windows and vents? Was that something?
I don't remember.
And
Chris is looking.
I had a little conversation with some of the people who work there about the issues. If they're understaffed, then not having the appropriate kind of security becomes more problematic. But if they didn't bring it up,
Again, I think they responded to the letter that they were satisfied with what was provided by the House.
and by the way, college, sooner or later, we're going to find $500 million to replace it. So that's no problem, huh?
And we've spent over the last couple of
Oh, yeah.
last capital
we've had to-
budgets,
we've had to.
security upgrades
Yeah.
to make sure door locks actually worked and
The
unlocked.
HVAC is the most important thing.
So I think
The boiler.
we're okay unless someone
Right.
has something
Right.
else.
Good.
Line 21, Education Department, Milford Applied. I guess this would be a time to bring forward some amendments that I'm considering. We put $1 in here, so a placeholder, and we had a robust discussion about not putting anything more at this time. So Senator Gray raises issues of how to move forward with a budget. I'd had conversations with, and probably the most interesting thing that the department had said was, once Milford, they can finally get something built over there. Their thought process going forward is that we're not putting up new buildings, but we're adapting programs that better meet the needs of the workforce coming out of there. I thought that was a tremendous idea because our capital
Yep.
has just become huge.
Yeah.
What I brought forward here are 1, 2, 3. Is it 3 or 4, Chris? I think it's 3. Schools.
So your amendment, Senator, has 4 CTE programs where you wanted to add funding. You have the Lakes region where you wanted to have funds for the Marine Trades Program of $110,000. The Mount Washington Valley Career Technical Center, where there's multiple pathways, career pathways there that they're looking for equipment and machinery for. Culinary arts, the construction, the sawmill, but they're listed on the second sheet that I provided you. The Rochester Technology Center, similar, there's multiple pathways that they're looking for some funding. And then the Dover Career was a CAT stimulator, the heavy machinery stimulator, and that was a $55,000.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, so, I've had a lot of a lot of work over the last couple of years about the larger projects. And we've run into this problem multiple times about a town not being able to vote, make a vote. With the cities, it's always been easier because we can get back to a city council and they can vote more quickly if the plans change and so on, but we're stuck, unfortunately. And it looks to me like, I think Milford's getting close, but it's not there yet. I think they, may well approve it next time, and then we would have to build that into the following budget. I just don't know about if we're ever gonna see a vote out of Kearsarge. This has happened before, and it just think you gotta move on. I had talked with, actually, the commissioner and the speaker, and I and a couple others had a conversation about, well, what could we do? And that, resulted in at least being $1 in there. And I had asked the commissioner multiple times to say, look, I know that there are some needs at these various programs, and I was really glad to help set up the Lakes Region Marine Trades. That was important, a big buy-in from the Marine Trades folks. They're up and running, great program. But there are other ones that I thought, well, Commissioner Kitch cover the list of some of these needs and projects. And he says, well, it's hard because then he'd be picking and choosing, and that's difficult for the system to have that be the process. But I really support this. I think these are immediate needs, and if we can't do the 10 million for Milford, we can. These programs are ready. The serving students are ready to go. They need this equipment. So I think if we could do this, but with the understanding that we are really going to have to make sure the next capital budget that we get. We're not going to play catch up. I don't think we're going to have the 24 million in there, but at least one of them. So I appreciate this effort, and I think this is a great way to go. So I'm this list. These are just the ones that I thought I'd been thinking about, particularly the marine trade ones. I think that I think there's a prospect of a couple of years from now getting another marine trades one down in Seacoast area. So this is the idea of being responsive to immediate needs of industry in the area around the CTE is just a great way to go. I'll just mention one last thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We passed legislation last year to set up a study committee over at DOE to look at the whole issue of the renovation. Do we just turn the crank for another 20 years, or do we try to focus on two things? One are emerging programs and needs so that we can more piecemeal the renovations. But then the second thing was, why can't we co-locate with community colleges? And that they already have CTE After Dark, where companies come in and use them in the high schools, but also there are programs that could be used by the community college or the CTE during the day, and then at the evening go to the industry as well. So that report will be out in May, and I think it'll set us up for be able to transition to a new system of how we fund the renovation. So long-winded, but I think this is a good way to go.
I didn't know about that. I had no idea about CT After Dark. Those are all great things.
Yeah.
I like the cohabitating of properties. Thank you for that.
It's blending. I mean, dual concurrent enrollment, it means the possibility that we really have essentially a K through 14 system. And particularly for the CTE students, they get involved in a sophomore and they maybe get a whole year of credit in community college by the time they graduate high school and save a lot of money because it's basically free. And then they can finish up whatever accreditation they need or apprenticeships or so on. So I think we're moving to a good system, and I think this is important to have something in here.
Senator Gray, you haven't had a lot of time to look at this. Let me just tell you first, it's wonderful. But now,
I certainly think that, investing in those students and investing in the trades is, an excellent thing to do. The list that's here, because Spalding is in there and it just went through its modernization. Dover just a couple of years before that, and I don't have the information on the other two. If this is the start of a new way to do it, and our school that didn't vote, our town that didn't vote to get the big modernization, that makes a difference to me. Because if I'm going to start this, I'm not sure that this is the right list. It may be that it should go to Department of Ed, and Department of Ed have X number of dollars to evaluate the programs and, fund them. out of the capital budget.
If I may say, I think this is not the start of a new system per se as a placeholder for right now. You know, things emerge, like the CAT full stimulator means they can do certain things. And, you know, at Crato, or, you know, at each of these, it's not like they're placeholders, but they are some lower cost immediate needs. And I think that we'll get that report in May, which I think is meant to come into play after we do the Milford renovation. That after that, then we have our 10 to, you know, $15 million a year that usually goes to CTE. We'll do it more targeted. So I think this is just kind of, here's some things that would really help right now for given programs.
Please.
The problem that I have is a problem of perception, okay? There's two schools on here. I represent one and you represent one.
Yeah.
I love Spalding School, you know, Spalding High School. 3 of my kids graduated from there. But I want to be fair. I want to have, if there is a need somewhere, I want someone to do that evaluation of where that need is, especially the schools. If we were to go to a second round of renovations, that would be the first ones. So these may be the right ones. They may not be the right ones. I'm not the one that knows enough to make that decision, okay? And whether that's, you know, give it to the Department of Ed or have something else done, you know, I'm willing to talk about it. But, you know, just like I say, it's a bad perception that one of the schools is mine, one is yours, and I don't know who's got the other ones, okay? Bad optics.
So we reached out to the Department of Education and asked the question whether this was appropriate and this could be done. Reached out to the schools and asked what would help you freshen up that would make the biggest advantage to your students going forward and other programs out there. And the builders had weighed in also if these things made sense. There's always a perception of how and what the list is. I'm more than comfortable with what I have here. We had talked to the Department of Ed, and when we were here, talked about what we could, when she had brought up the point about that we're hoping in the next round of buildings to get us our modern outer shell, and that, you know, they were going to then try and move into what made sense. I didn't go any further than this, and 2 of these are in my district. But the marine trades was a given. That's just, we have great support in a lot of schools that come into that. Same thing on the Dover Career, on the CAT full simulator, that they've got other schools that will travel to that, because how do you train your next round of operators? And, you know, it's a low cost item. If you want to give this some more time to breathe, I'm quite happy with what we have here.
Yep.
Yourself, sir?
Well, thank you. I've actually graduated from a CTE program. I did automotive at Keene High School, and I can tell you it's extremely valuable. I think the ROI is there. I think, you know, this is kind of a very good compromise in terms of what we have. And I understand the optics of it, but also the CTE programs need this equipment. And if we're going to invest in the future workforce, what better way to do it than right here?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Senator Gray's statement, and that's why, you know, when I had my conversation over the last few months with the commissioner, that was the kind of same concern about perceptions of who gets to choose. And I was not aware of any of these particular items. I hadn't heard anything about Dover, for example. I just, you know, if it came from the commissioner, he would be the one who knows what he's heard from them. I'm not sure how we give a pot of money to the DOE and say, you know, even as, let's say we gave $323,000 to the Department of Ed. I'm really not, I don't know that we have ever kind of done that without in capital budget without having an actual list, because otherwise, I don't think our due diligence is there, is to just giving somebody some money. But I don't know. I mean, I understand what Senator Gray is saying, and let's have some more conversation.
Okay. Yes, Senator Gray.
The only reason to give the money to DOE is that, if we were to go out and say, okay, all the VOTEC should send us in, what they would like and, get a priority, that I wouldn't be able to do it in time to pass the budget.
Right.
Okay, so that's the only reason
Yeah,
it was,
indeed.
if this recommendation is coming from the Department of Ed, which I'm not so sure that it is.
Correct.
Then I would have, I would be more open to it.
Maybe, if I may suggest, Mr. Chairman, maybe we could have the commissioner and the director of adult ed, and the director of adult ed has couple people under that position, and one is this Jeff Beard, the CT director, but the director of adult ed, so maybe the two of them could come in, the commissioner and the director of adult ed, and that question could have put to them, not only what do you think about this list, but are there some really immediate needs that really can't wait in those schools for the next time they come around to a full renovation or whatever plan we go to the next few years, that actually would mean that there are students who can get an education into the workforce without having to wait two or three or more years for this kind of opportunity. I mean, the marine trade ones, I had set up with them when I passed the bill last year to do that, or 2 years ago to do that program, was that, we had some great commitments from the marine trades folks up there for apprenticeships and for equipment and some equipment. But I said, we're going to need, you're going to get started, but then we're going to know what kind of renovation might be needed at the marine trades facility or at the VOTEC, so that the classroom can actually handle it. Because the small engine is one thing, and then, the automotive is another. So they're really apples and oranges. So I anticipated there would be eventually some need for some work for the marine trades program once it got up and running. But,
Well, we have a little bit of time, so we can have that conversation, but I will say that in all of my years, when we brought over a capital budget over to this table and it came over to the Senate, there was always 3 or 4 tweaks to the capital budget, which were projects coming from senators specifically. And those had found their way into, because you folks were always able to find some more money repurposed or this or that. So we can have the conversation. Senator Gray brings up the point. We certainly don't have the time to have everyone come in with their items. But if you want to bring them in to have a conversation about these items, which is relatively a minor addition to the capital budget, if that's the pleasure, I'll ask her to come in. Or him, right? Okay, let's move to, I'm gonna tentatively write on my side the addition of $323,001. Sure. Environmental services. And we'll hold the discussion till you get back, but I don't think you were here for this either, Senator Waters.
well, I looked pretty closely at environmental services. Were they happy with this list? Seemed to me these are the exceptions.
They,
Water.
yep. There's always a greater need, but they were happy with this. Is this where Senator Carson's amendment would come in?
Yes, so the department indicated that the appropriations contained in the House Bill 25 met all their needs in terms of matching the grants that they have. And then the Winnipesaukee River Basin need as well. So they were satisfied with that. Senator Carson, I guess, was working with the department to see about getting some funding for the Southern New Hampshire Regional Water Interconnection Project, the second phase of that. So she had an amendment related to that. I'm going to pass it out now.
So, if I may.
Please.
On that, could you pass that out? Because I have some information that might be relevant to that.
Thank you. Amendment by Senator Carson, speaking with DES on some additions totaling $5 million.
And if I, just for full picture on this, this is only part of what's needed for the project. So Senator Carson will have an amendment for House Bill 2. Basically, it's Senate Bill 115 that's laid on the table right now. So she's got an adjustment to that to come up with the balance of the
What
funds.
is that?
Senate Bill 115,
Yeah,
it's laid on the table right now in the
but what
Senate.
is it?
So it's a continuation of the Southern New Hampshire project. So
Oh,
that
that's
was
the- Okay, all right.
So that was the bill that was passed by the Senate, went to the policy committee, then went to Senate Finance. Senate Finance did a slight amendment to it, and then it was tabled by the full body.
So-
Senator Carson's asking 5 million from the capital budget, and then 11.5 million from the ground trust to cover this project in its entirety. So.
So,
It was.
if I may, what I wanted to bring up related to that is that I would recommend a conversation with Representative Boyd. Because we had come into the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust, a proposal from Manchester saying that they ended up not using like 1.3 million or something on a project that the Groundwater Trust had funded. And what they wanted to do was to essentially transfer that into a different project so that they had some era funding for that, but they weren't sure they could get it all spent by the deadline. So they were essentially asking for us in the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund, instead of lapsing that money back, to let them use it for the other one to deal with that other issue. I saw that, and I'm knowing that Senator Carson was thinking about something on these lines, and I think it's at least worth discussing with Representative Boyd, because we had a lot of discussion about this extension down there, and they're very supportive of it. And we funded a part of it through the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust of that work. But if potentially that funding that Manchester wanted to use for something else might more appropriately be put towards this, that's something that the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust ought to consider. I think they're having the subcommittee meet next Monday. So I don't know what you think, Mr. Chairman, but there's interlocking pieces of the puzzle on this project, and it might be that there is some funding so that some of this might be that grant instead of coming from this there, but that's just, I don't know. I think it's worth having a conversation.
I can't speak to it because I didn't work on getting this information. It was just provided to me. But it does look like that there's multiple, as you've indicated, Senator, there's multiple pieces to the puzzle to make this project work. The Groundwater Trust is one of them. The capital budget is another one. And then it looks like there's some other grants that some of the communities might have available to help address some of it. But the department and Senator Carson and others would probably be more appropriate to discuss it.
So why don't I follow up with both Senator and Representative Boyd?
And if I may ask another
Yes.
question.
Yep.
So I guess I wasn't quite understanding where we're at. So it sounds like, I have a question about the bonding, but if we do this, And instead of the 19.7, because that's going from somewhere else, and the 5 is here, does that mean that we have a $11 to $12 million extra for the capital budget? Potentially, I mean, does that potentially say the capital budget is now down, from the 132 to the 121 level?
What are you removing from the capital budget? I
Well,
guess.
I just thought, I guess I'm not understanding how this works. That if we take the 19 million out here and fund it with
So the 19 million for the Winnipesaukee River Basin
Yeah.
is a restricted fund. So that's the 10 communities in that region
Right.
that benefit from this, pay
So-
for this.
I'm sorry if I'm confused, but does that mean that we are spending, got the 5 here, but does that mean we're spending $12 million less in the capital budget?
You'd be adding $5 million to the capital
We're
budget.
adding $5 million.
You're going from 32 to 37.
Right.
All right. So that's what I wasn't clear about because of the
Yeah, no,
budget,
I
the bonding paragraph down there. I wasn't
Yep.
sure what that meant. Okay, but it's still in, fine.
Oh, I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Yeah. I'm just, the amendment,
Yeah, okay.
the proposed amendment before you is just replacing the entire
Gotcha.
section with the
Gotcha.
bolded
Okay.
language.
Thank you.
Yes. My apologies. I should have said
Even
that
I
at the
can
start.
understand now. Even a senator can understand. Thank you.
I don't, the projects are worthy to be here. The governor, I believe, went out to a higher number that we shouldn't go to, the 140,
No,
42 or whatever. The House worked very hard to cut back the budget to leave us some room. And so I'm still open. I'm more than happy to have a conversation. We'll have it with Boyd, we'll have it with the senator.
Yep. sounds good.
I'm not having that issue with adding these.
Okay.
And as we go through, these are the only 2 items that I know of, and maybe we'll find.
And that's fine, yeah.
I guess the problem that I have with these things is whether or not there's any repayment to the state, okay? If, again, I'll go back to Rochester because I'm very familiar with it. The pond or lakes that we draw a lot of our water from, there was a possibility of raising the level of that by X number of feet. And certainly, I'm not providing any funds here, that aren't part of another program to do that. And so the ratepayers, the water payers in Rochester are going to be the ones that actually pay for that.
Right.
Not to start, but as they make their, and so I don't know that in this thing that there is the same kind of situation where either the state or whomever, the funder, is going to be repaid enough of that money to make it significant. It certainly, may decrease the water rate in the areas affected. And if it does, then, those are the thoughts that are going through my head right now, and I want to express. So I did.
So the portion that is mimicking Senate Bill 115 is a grant to the communities for the project. So it's not a loan. Again, that's just mimicking the language that was in Senate Bill 115 that the House approved and tabled. The capital budget is also here's $5 million to do this project, and the state will bond that for 20 years.
Senator Washington.
And just, as I recall from the work in the Groundwater Trust Fund, where we do have that breakdown of loans versus grants at a certain percentage usually. But on this project in particular, there was we were trying to make sure that the existing communities within the water district were not being charged for the extension to other folks who were then going to benefit in other communities. And that the folks in other communities would be charged for that water. So there is, again, I think if you had some more conversation just to sort out some of that. Because in relation to Senator Gray's question, that for the things the Groundwater Trust Fund does, that's we have a formula where we expect some of its loan repayment. It depends on, there's a ranking for the taxation and income levels of the community that formula is used to decide how much grant versus how much thing. And we prioritize, there's a point system for the communities that, for whom it's a burden beyond a certain level because of their demographics and their tax base, that we give more grants than more grants than loans and vice versa.
Right.
So, but it's an important question as to if we're providing a service for somebody with a capital budget, is there some kind of payback involved, or who's paying?
Senator Gray?
The conversation about grant versus loan may be more appropriate for the Senate Bill 115 than in here, because we really don't
No, we're just the capital budget. Yeah.
have the ability to do it.
And just to, I think to address partly Senator Waters' comment about the ratepayers that would be impacted, the language that the Senate Finance Committee added would also be included in Senator Carson's amendment for House Bill 2, which is no current public utility ratepayer shall be adversely affected by any direct or indirect cost to bring drinking water to communities receiving new services through any projects funded by this appropriation. So that was language that was agreed to in Senate Finance to try to address the possibility of harming current ratepayers.
Okay. To be continued.
Further conversation? Okay, so we'll have a great, for now, I'm going to add the $5 million into environmental service. That's the correct place for it.
Okay.
Okay, fish and game.
The committee had questions about the backhoe appropriation. But other than that, the agency presented that they were okay with what the House had provided for funding for the various four projects.
Have the department brought any more information on?
We have not received any additional information from the department since they were here.
There was one piece of equipment.
Yeah, I remember.
Very
I was here.
expensive. Oh, you were here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would, and then the question of whether a backhoe's capital budget, I think the senator's comments about co-sharing some equipment, did it make sense? We're looking for a response. We haven't had it.
Yeah, and I raised the question about, we're buying a piece of equipment with capital budget. We try not to do that, but.
We have some more time. Our next work session are we scheduled? We're looking at next Monday. We don't have that straightened out. For planning purposes, I'm not so sure this should be in here, and they haven't. And so for right now, I'm going to suggest we strike the $350,000 for the backhoe, and then we'll give that time for them to come back, which would reduce. That's their only appropriation in there. Any thoughts on that? Okay. Health and Human Services.
So again, the department wasn't asking for additional capital appropriations, though they did provide in their presentation. If the committee did find there was additional funds, they did have some ideas of what they would like to see funded. It was 6 items that they had listed. Glencliff Home Security, the ADRC Information and Referral System, the multi-language support for client notices, a document management retention system, some elevator replacements for HHS, and then the Glencliff Home Fuel System upgrade. The projects range from $1.2 million to $3 million. Some of them had some federal match.
I'm inclined to accept what we have.
Sounds good to me.
Senator Waters, do you need more time?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Like anything else?
Senator Fenn was being quiet over there.
You know, I'm just taking it all in. So.
Okay.
Don't worry, I'll get loud to it.
Information technology.
They responded back to the letter to them that they were okay with what the House had provided them for capital appropriation.
Okay.
Department of Justice, line 59.
Same thing, they're okay with that appropriation. That's all they need to update their computer system.
63, Military Affairs, Veteran Services. I believe that was the same comment.
Yeah, my only comment on this is I'm glad that they are moving deliberately forward on their planning. They have a lot of projects that are imagined and need to be done and roof replacement, always good.
The department did have one request as it related to the Manchester land replacement. I handed out their letter the first day that you met. They would like to change that to military and veteran services centers. Again, it's to maximize the ability to get some matching funds. They don't know if they can get the Manchester, if they find land and purchase it, if they can get the federal match to go along with that. So they had asked for a title change, not a dollar change, but just a title change to the project. And I have a copy of what that is if people want to see it.
Well, if you're gonna pass it out, that's fine. I just wanted to know what it was. So I can write it down. Thank you.
Amend section 1 to be,
So basically, it's the bolded line of section Roman 10, project number 2.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear that. What is this?
So the amendment is going to be, in the actual bill itself, would be section 1, paragraph Roman 10, and it's project number 2.
So it's basically the 5 million is transferred from the Manchester to that.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, that's what their request is. And
Yeah, yeah.
again, I did hand out their letter the first day. I have a few copies here,
Yeah, I remember.
if you want to see it again.
I think we're fine. And someone want a copy of
Okay.
it? I think we're okay.
Yeah. Good.
All right. Moving to Natural and Cultural Resources Department of request tramway. This is interesting.
So the department had come in and asked to remove the Connecticut Lakes Headwater Project and the Umbagog Lake State Park Marine Facilities projects and add those appropriations to the tramway. I did ask the commissioner about the federal fund portion of the Umbagog Lake, and that wouldn't be able to be moved into the tramway appropriation. So it's only the $475,000 of general fund bond appropriation. But that was their request of the committee when they came in on Friday. I think it was Friday. Yeah. The discussion was that the two projects that they did get were, when they did their agency requests, were like project 11 and 12 on their list of needs. Their priority is the tramway. They believe that's the most important thing that the park system can do at this time. The second, unrelated to their requests, Senator McConkey had asked them about the state library and security needs, and the department is working to get me information related to that. It was suggested that there was two appropriations that were provided in 2019, one for the library climate services, climate control space, and then another for the archaeology lab. Both projects had been on hold. Since Friday, the department has indicated that they are in the process of getting a request of information out on the library climate control. So they anticipate that would be spent relatively soon. I haven't heard on the archaeology lab money yet. The thought was that if those appropriations weren't going to be spent, they might be able to be used for the security aspect. I also don't have any number related to the security. So I've asked that they provide some information on that between Public Works and Dancer. And so we're waiting to hear.
Senator Waters.
So just a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. From my understanding, I spent a long time on the board of the building next door to the State Library and the Historical Society, and the humidity and the problems over there. And it's the same, there's a river flowing under, as we know from the tunnel, there's a river flowing under all these properties and from the parking garage. It seemed to me, and isn't it the case that is really pretty important to the State Library in terms of the integrity of the conditions in that building, that this get done?
The climate control aspect?
Yeah.
When the project was originally asked for and discussed in the capital committees, it was indicated that to preserve the documents that they have there, they really need to have some sort of control. They maintain the record going back to communities to the start of time. So they have some really old documents that if they do get moisture damage, they would be hard to or impossible to replace. There was some questions whether the climate control space should actually be in the library or moved into another area. So I'm not sure where that is in the discussions. They didn't indicate that in the information they provided me on Friday.
Thank you. And my other question is
And
on,
to help with that, my understanding was we had an extensive conversation for a few hours as part of code. We
Yeah.
talked about that over there, that they are moving the more sensitive items over to archives
Okay.
where we have room. And so they're being protected. So we just don't know what's happening. I'm sorry, go ahead, Senator.
on the tramway, that's pretty high priority and the costs have obviously are going up. I'm wondering about whether that project, is there any particular vulnerability in terms of the supply chain for that project and the cost of materials because of the tariff situation, particularly with Canada? Because I would imagine some of that.
So my understanding is
verification is-
the vendors that would be able to provide the tramway equipment and materials are located in Europe. When they put the bid out originally, they only got responses from one of the vendors. That's the number you've heard, around $33 million that would cost. Since then, the department has put that on hold and they're doing work on the concrete to determine the structural integrity of the concrete pillars that support. Because I guess that was one of the concerns that the vendors had and why some didn't bid on the potential project.
So the sense is that if we make this change, they got what they need. They can get it done.
The department indicated that this would get them to the place where they believe they had enough additional revenue from other sources that they could come up with $33 million to do the project. And they're in the process of having having an engineer look at the concrete pillars to get a clean bill of health on those so that when they go out to bid, they hopefully have more competing interests and that might drive the cost down a little bit.
But if I understand correctly, they're not in a position right now to buy that material to replace for the gondolas and that sort of thing.
Not at the moment with the appropriation that they had. They had an $18 million appropriation previously. That was cash money that was provided to them. And that's when they first went out to bid and the project came in at $33 million. So again, since then, they've put the project on hold to do the structural work related to the concrete pillars with the anticipation that they needed more funding to actually do the project. So they were coming to this capital budget to get that. Their ask originally was 33 million, 15 million because they had 18 to get to the 33. The governor said, I'm going to take the 18 million back as part of House Bill 2 and we'll bond 20 million for you. Department came in to help, House capital budget said that's not enough. We can't do it with $20 million. The House was able to give them up to 26 and thought that was close enough for them to get going. The commissioner indicated in here on Friday that we need to be a little bit closer to 30. So if we can get, 28 million-ish, that would be okay. We could come up with a couple million through the Canning Capital Improvement. They have a bonding authority for $6 million. That's for the Cannon Mountain specifically, as well as some of their park fees. They think they could adjust some of those to get some revenue. And when they do adjust their park fees, they do come through fiscal to get approval for that.
My concern is this has been such a moving target.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if I have confidence enough to know that we're there yet. On the state park marina facilities here, the monies that was there were federal funds that were involved. Did they say they didn't have a concern that the state park marina facilities would be perfectly fine for another 2 years?
They did not indicate any concern before the committee on Friday. So I'm not aware of any,
Yeah, I remember
she didn't indicate
They
anything.
seem to think they're okay.
So that for theory, there's 900,000 there. The Connecticut Lake headwaters, we talked about that. We had made a position in the House and the Senate last year to bring monies forward, and it was our hope that we would have this number going forward for, I think it was capital budget going forward until they got the roads back to a point that they were satisfied. I asked where we were, and I don't think we got much of an answer on that. Were they going to get back to us?
She was going to, yes. She indicated that they've been doing the grading and fixing washout areas on certain tracks of the road system up there, but they've got hundreds of miles of old timber roads up there that they are managed as part of this tract of land.
Just a correction on what you said, that since
Oh,
475,000 is federal
We
funding,
don't have that.
so there's only be the 475, not the.
Okay. Thank you for that. So with their testimony, should we consider taking the 475 from the line 77 and bumped up the 26 million to 26,475,000, and then wait for a further conversation on the lower 1.4 million? Possibly adjust some of that. Would you be okay with that? Are you okay with that?
I have no problem, since the commissioners, that's what she wants to do. And the tram is one of our priorities.
Okay.
So just to make sure I understood, you're going to move the 475 up, but you're going to hold on the 1.4 million to see if they provide additional.
See if there's another number that would satisfy continuing that effort up there. So that's a big, it's not for my district, that's
Yeah, yeah.
a big economic engine. So maybe there's some more that can come out of there. The moving to 82 Pease Development Authority.
Pease had on their letter that they returned back, they had no issues with the appropriations provided by the House capital budget.
Yeah, and I was, here's the CTE money, right? I'm glad this is getting done. It's important that we've been many years of improvements there. They did the turning basin, some of the dredging, they got federal money to replace the decking. We're seeing an increase in the business that can come in there and the scale of it. And this is, important. And these are, I don't know if you've been in that building. They want to replace it. I imagine it has a wash into the sea already.
We were not taken in there on my last tour.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm all for these
Yeah,
improvements.
no, I don't have issue with it. We'll leave it as is for now.
Yeah,
Police standards, main entrance security improvements, 480,000.
They indicated they were satisfied with that appropriation.
The we'll stay at 480. Department of Safety, we just had that conversation.
If I'm, can I, MA on that, Chairman, so, you know, I went off on, there's a lot of people working in that, 2 shifts working in that now. But when I heard that the new piece of equipment, no matter where it is, it's just gonna have 1 or 2 people, that even if it is over at the prison, so what? Right? So I think it'd be nice to hear from Commissioner Hanks about how she's gonna make sure that people have good jobs over there. But I'm convinced that we need the new equipment. There, I mean, they didn't mention it here, but they've had some difficulties because of that equipment, and there's, you know, sold, there's no parts for it and so on and so forth. They've not been able to make the quota, they've been behind sometimes, not for any fault to them, but just the way it is. So I think they need new equipment, and from that conversation, once I realized that it's almost no jobs, that maybe it's better to go over to safety and to be in their warehouse if that works. Because that old equipment's still there and we don't know any capital budget to remove the old stuff so they can put the new one in there because it's not small. So anyways, that's just my, you know, in reflecting upon what we heard today. I don't see how we don't do it the way that they've suggested, but we'll hear from Hanks, but I just a couple jobs, so what?
And Greg, any thoughts?
Along the lines of the Senator Waters, you know, recidivism saves us money when we keep recidivism low.
Yep.
And training those people, getting
Yep.
ready for other jobs. You know, we do a lot in the prisons right now with education. I just got the invitation to go up to Berlin for their graduation. So it is important to me, but right now, until we talk to Commissioner Hanks, and if I'm installing it at the prison and I'm building a new prison,
Right.
then I'm gonna also
Really,
have
what
to
are we
move.
gonna do?
So
That
I'm
time.
on the fence there about where it should be located, but the equipment should be bought. And it should be installed somewhere.
Okay, so we're okay with the monies for that.
Yeah, I think.
And how, the gun range, we okay with that?
I think they need it. I mean, I'm glad we fixed up the one at the police academy because the air issues there, that was dangerous. But it's just a pistol range. And, they need this, you know, there's one of these facilities that over in my area that's for the local police departments. They need a range of this scale for the rifle, for other kinds of training. And,
You know, my only issue was police standards, but then when I found out
yeah,
that this is a rifle range also.
yeah. Oh, we have
Quite
to,
honestly, I like them having just a narrow space for rifles because I really want them hitting that small space,
yeah.
not widening that out for them. So I was, after my questions were answered on the police standards indoor range, I'm okay with that. And the software automated, that only makes sense. So, all right, so for now, we're okay with that. But I want to hear that further discussion with Commissioner Hanks on the programming there, or what's going to happen with people. And I'm really surprised, of course, I don't know why I'm surprised that actually could go down to 2 persons, 1 person operating it, 1 person in quality control. I get concerned, though, when we're filling up a building, and I do want to see how big that space is. And if you wouldn't mind reaching out, or I can reach out, I'd like to go over and see that warehouse this week. If it's not such a secure facility that they can bring me in and show me that space.
I'll let them know that. They'll probably have to work directly with your office because of your scheduling.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah, no, sounds good.
No, it sounds like the thing that you're in should be able to work with this on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it brings us to the university system, and they have an $8 million ask. Any conversation on that? Was there a change in language for them?
Yeah, they were requesting to change it from what's currently there to be academic building deferred maintenance projects. And I did get a letter from them. I just didn't get it printed before I came in. But when I asked them for the letter, I asked them to be clear that it's not being used for signs or other sports facilities, that it would actually be used for the academic buildings where they need the funding. Their priority is still to focus on the projects that are listed, the Hyde Hall, and then the Redfern, Morrison, and Ketty at the Keene State, but they wanted some flexibility with the unknown future of their funding as well as student needs to be able to shift. They're okay with the $8 million appropriation. Though, I mean, as with most agencies, if you were to offer them 10 million, they'd take it, but they can work with the 8 million.
Okay. Did you say you had a letter?
I did. I didn't print it before I came, and I'll get that to the committee. I apologize for that.
So unless I hear something else, I'm fine with that proposal. Moving on to 1.5, the Veterans Home.
I think the committee heard pretty clearly that they're satisfied with their appropriation. I think Representative Graham came and testified before you at the public hearing on behalf of the Veterans Home.
I'm okay with that. Yep. Brings us to Department of Transportation, starting on 114.
So the Department of Transportation presented that they were okay with the items that were provided to them, but they did offer up additional items, again, if you had funding that you were looking to spend. In their presentation, if you remember the mention of the gray line. So everything above the gray line on the general fund side is what you see in this document before you. So it's the matching funds for the transit vehicles and the FAA projects. And then under the section 2, which is at the bottom of page 4, those are their highway funds. Those are the same projects that they identify above the gray line. Again, I think the commissioner was putting out there's additional needs if you have money, but
Right.
Understands.
I'm fine as it's presented.
I've got no changes.
Okay. Section 2,
That's the highway funds of the Department of Transportation. I did, unrelated to section 1 or 2, I did have another potential amendment for the committee to consider. And if I can pass out, then I can explain what's
Could you speak
going
up just a little bit on that?
Yep. So section 9 of the bill, I had a suggested potential amendment for section 9. And this deals with the ability of the governor and council to accept federal funds for capital projects. Let me hand the item out and then I'll speak to it.
thank you.
Thanks.
Why would,
So this
why would this be a House Bill 25 and not a House Bill 2?
because it relates to the actual House Bill 25 appropriation. So what happens here, this is language that allows the governor and council to, when they accept federal funds for an agency, since they have the ability to do that, it may or may not come through fiscal, depending on the threshold of the money coming in. And what this language is saying is that if an agency gets federal dollars for a capital project, that those federal dollars will reduce the general fund appropriation, capital appropriation by the same amount. Haven't experienced this yet. However, we may experience this in the next couple of weeks where an agency was reimbursed some FEMA dollars. They used capital appropriations to do the project that needed to be done. And the feds have reimbursed that through the FEMA program. The issue is that capital project overview committee or the treasurer are not identified as being noticed on these activities. So that's what the Roman 3 is just suggesting, that make sure that if this happens, that the capital project overview committee is provided a copy of the governor and council item that did accept the federal dollars that impacts a capital project, and that the treasurer is made aware so that she knows to reduce the appropriation.
Senator Watson.
I mean, yes,
Think
if
about that.
yes, it would be nice for us to know. That's all good. But the heart of this is in section 2 in the existing House Bill 25, right? Where it says that if additional funds come in from the feds, we get to reduce the
Right,
state appropriation by that amount,
right.
which might produce a lapse for us if that happens, that we can use.
Potentially, well, it shouldn't.
Okay,
What it should do is if you had $1 million appropriated for a capital project, and then they found that for some reason the federal government would match $250,000,
all right.
you'd reduce the appropriation.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Yeah,
I saw it.
so it wouldn't be sitting there as $1 million.
But if we
It would
have
be
more.
750,000 and then 250,000 of federal dollars.
Gotcha. All right. I
But
had it
when,
turned around.
when it came to the committee, they thought it was going to be no federal match. So they said, we need $1 million of general fund appropriation.
Okay, thank you.
The disconnect is that there's nowhere does it say let the treasurer know that or capital project overview committee know that.
Yeah.
So the thought was in talking with administrative services that maybe there needed to be some language added that just directs that the agency provide any item that they might get approved by governor and council that is federal dollars that might impact the capital project goes to those two places. Again, the capital project overview committee and the treasurer's office.
Senator Gray.
Okay, so those people get noticed, but brass tacks that the capital budget, if they got the 5 million, it would come from 132 down to 127, and the amount of the bond could be less.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be the whole purpose.
Yeah, all right.
I haven't seen it happen. There's potential in this fiscal year that an agency may be able to do that. And in the discussions about that potential occurring, I raised the question as like, how would you guys know on the capital project overview committee that this happened? And how does the treasurer know? I didn't know if there was a reporting mechanism in another place. In the discussions, it was like, no, there's really nothing that requires anybody to tell anybody. They just will, won't they? I says, well, why don't we make it more tooth to it and have something in the bill that says, make sure you let these individuals know.
We okay with that? I don't see any harm in it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in part, I'd just say that, the chairman, that, part of the reason I was inquiring of these departments as to whether or not this promised federal match was actually forthcoming is just because, given the circumstances right now, we really don't know what's going to happen. Even if something promised, it's not in our accounts, it's not in our accounts. So that this, I think, would be important to have very timely information so that everybody knows if a federal, grant amount has been reduced.
To that point, Senator Waters, just to back up, Health and Human Services did indicate when they came in, I don't know if you were here when they came in, but they had talked to their federal partners about the money and that felt comfortable that would be coming
Okay.
forward.
Good, good to hear. Thank you.
But that's all I had for the committee in terms of changes or additional information.
So follow up, we're going to have a conversation with Natural and Cultural about that. They'll give some information about the headwater repairs. I think we talked about shifting up to 475,000, possibly moving from our number of 1.4, so we can have that. We've removed from the Fish and Game, I'm sorry to be gathering at this point, 350,000. Have a tentative placeholder in Department of Education for 323,000. We're going to add on to an amendment on environmental services for the $5 million. Was there anything else that we were?
The name changes for the military affairs and
Yes.
USNH.
Yep. I have a question on scheduling. I believe the Senate has traditionally tried to get the capital budget finished, so it's not hampering on your deliberations for finance.
It really doesn't have a big impact on my deliberations, so.
Only on time in terms of the ability to get senators to the capital budget when they're working on finance.
But since we've been doing this on Monday mornings, and I haven't tried to schedule anything on Monday mornings,
Do we tentatively set up for the following Monday, hadn't we? And
need to turn your mic on, Declan. Because we do have people out there in internet land.
That's fair. I wasn't sure if it would be proper for me to turn my microphone on. The problem we we're having with scheduling with Mondays was with Senator Carson. And when I got an email, right, just spoke to Senator McConkey about this, and that it is possible to meet, like today on days where she won't be able to attend the meeting on Monday mornings, and that opens up a large amount of days on those Monday mornings that when I was trying to schedule on Friday were unavailable because of her lack of availability on Monday mornings.
I think it'd be worthwhile to talk with Senator Carson about if we met on Monday at 9, and we potentially at that point might be voting on a bill. We have a meeting of the Joint Historical, which she chairs at 11. So I don't know if she's planning to be in at the 11 o'clock meeting, but maybe if we get all our ducks in a row, if she can come in. I mean, does she want to vote or not? If she's happy with everything, does she need to be here to vote? Or can we
she
vote?
seems happy
Yeah.
in a conversation, but if she needed for a vote, she could be.
But I think if we could meet before 11 on Monday, then why not, if we can?
I will try and schedule that today.
Would being Monday would be the last day return to me? Or do we need more
If-
time?
If we can come to an agreement, we'll end on Monday.
Does the committee still want Department of Education and Department of Corrections to come in, or do you just want to try to get some sort of a letter from them?
I think if you
a
had
letter
the
would be fine.
conversation, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
if you think they need to come in, but if you have the conversation and are satisfied in both regards, then
So you
you
don't
can
need
report
them?
to us, so.
But
Okay.
we'll reach out, we'll reach out.
Okay.
So why don't we, I can go upstairs and speak to Senator Carson, see if we can get her down, because you said you have a meeting for 11. Is that
Yeah.
gonna be across the street or?
It's
where
gonna be
you
right here,
Gonna be right here.
yeah.
So why don't we shoot for, I think we talked about, do you like 9 o'clock or 9:30?
I don't care.
It's fine, either one.
9:30 would be a little better.
I like 9:30. Let's try and go to 9:30. Just lets me attend to my business a few more minutes.
Okay.
All right?
So for your meeting on Monday, what I'll do is I'll take the amendments that I presented to you today. I'll have a new amendment for House Bill 25 drawn up so that you have everything together. The only thing I won't include is the $1.4 million for the Connecticut Headway. I'll keep that as it is right now.
You okay with that? Okay. All right. I think we've done our business.
Move to come out of executive session.
Motion's been made. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're out of executive session. Any other business to come before the committee at this time? Seeing none. We're adjourned.
Mark, do you have a minute?
Was that?
Do you have a minute?
Yes.
Okay.